What up? LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Discord. We back, man. You know what it is. It's another Docs Radio banger. It's me, realest recruiter in the game. So put some respect on my name. Like it, tweet it, share it with somebody who needs to see it. And you know where we at, man. Casting couch is all set up here in Denver for the 4th year in a row. It's the Eat Denver vibes. And I'm really, really excited to bring to you this episode with my man, Seb, the founder of Sophon and a venture partner at Paper Ventures. Big shout out the whole Paper gang. And we got a lot of fun stuff to get into today. So just to give the listeners a little bit of context, give me the quick lore on the backstory. Like, who were you before Web3 and how did we get to this point?
Yeah. So my name is Seb. I'm Swiss. I started working in a bank after I finished university. I was living in Zurich actually, and was one of the largest private banks. They're not active in the US, but biggest private bank in Europe, very active in Asia. And I was in a team that was choosing the asset managers that the bank works with. So became very good at kind of like looking at equity asset managers, fixed income asset managers, hedge funds, etc. And then like doing the due diligence and choosing who gets to work with the bank. And around 2017, there's that cycle, right? Which I personally had like participated in and stuff. Like I bought Ripple, that sort of stuff.
That was your first love in crypto?
Yeah, I popped my cherry with Ripple, yeah.
As you should, yep.
Around 2018, end of 2018, the CIA was like, okay, we want to start getting some exposure to crypto asset managers.
I was going to ask if they were like receptive or if they were...
We were getting a lot of demand from clients, I want to buy Bitcoin, I want to buy ETH, but there were no products for people to buy. So you had to buy it through an asset manager. So he's like, figure out how this works. So I said, okay. I put my hand up in the team and I said, I'd like to be the one to own this. So I became, over the next couple of years, sort of the head crypto researcher.
This was the era where the internal crypto teams at the banks were like starting to be a thing.
Yeah. I was head of myself, right? It's not like anyone else was working.
Yeah.
But okay, it allowed me, because the bank was it's a very prestigious bank. It gave me a lot of access. So I basically met all the asset managers that existed at the time because they would come to the bank, pitch, etc. And just before COVID hit, so end of 2019, I was like, okay, I really want to work in crypto full time. Working in a bank sucks. Like I'm gonna, kill myself if I stay here. So I quit. And the last day of work, because I had a gardening leave, was the 1st of March 2020, which I that's basically like a week after Europe started locking up. So I quit. I had no job. I'm basically stuck at home. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna play poker for a bit. just like go fuck all it anyway.
Yeah.
And I start diving back into crypto. And the DeFi summer happens, which was like super fun and like a very educative experience, I guess I would say. And I decided that I really wanted to work for a network. So I joined a network called Nervos, which is it was a multi-layer blockchain, Chinese blockchain. They had raised a lot of money from Sequoia and some other investors in 2018, 2019.
Yeah, I remember hearing the name.
Yeah. So I worked there for about a year and a half as their head of DeFi. Obviously, in hindsight, it's fucking hard to build DeFi on some completely random, chain that nobody's ever heard of. But we did okay. We ran it up to around 200 mil TVL. But it was not bad. And then I was like, okay, I want to go back. I want to be in the Ethereum ecosystem. So what's popping in Ethereum? So I was looking at it and layer 2s were becoming a thing, and there was either optimistic rollups or ZK rollups. And Optimism had already launched by then, and I thought, okay, well, ZK rollups are clearly the next big thing. So who's building stuff in ZK? And back then, there really wasn't a lot of content to learn about this stuff. I was looking at a couple companies. There was Starkware, there was Polygon with the Hermes team, and there was Matter Labs. And I investigated as much as possible, and I figured, okay, Matter Labs looks like the place that I'd like to work at. So I got introduced to them to join as their head of DeFi. Very long interview process, took like about 2 months, like 10-ish interviews. And they signed me. And so I worked there for around 2 years. And in about a year ago, I decided to leave and to build Sophon. And now we're here.
Tell me a little. Well, let give the one-liner and the quick TLDR on Sophon. But for me, I'm actually more curious. Like, where did the impetus for the idea come from?
Yeah. So Sophon is a consumer entertainment oriented chain where the North Star for us is, the one-liner is make crypto cool again. Okay, I want to make crypto cool again, and do that through having incredible products and user experiences that people who are not in crypto, so like Web2 folks, can be attracted to and onboarded to be on chain to use crypto. About a year ago,
Like, you spent so much time in DeFi, like,
yeah, but you had all these different L2s, all these generalized chains. They're all kind of doing the same thing. They're all going after the same users. They don't really have like a soul or a niche. They're just trying to do the same thing. The tech differences are there, but they're somewhat marginal. Like there's 10x differences or 100x differences between them. But what they were doing is they're all opening up their tech stacks. They're open source, and they're opening them up to be commoditized in a way where you can come as a business and get the same tech stack and then just run your business on top of it, right? This is what Base is doing with the OP stack, or Zora as well, for instance. And I knew that Matter Labs was going to do the same thing with the ZK stack. And the ZK stack has a lot of really cool features like this. If we're going to talk about tech for a sec, they have this native account abstraction. You can do custom paymasters. You can sponsor gas. You can have your own gas token. So all of these things were great. And I thought, okay, well, if they're going to do it, I might as well be one of the first ones to get in there and build something of my own, right? And leverage like the business capabilities, the deal making capabilities that I have.
Knowing you, we worked together for, I don't know, 6, 10, 12 months or whatever. Like, I feel like you have a lot of like strong operational characteristics that you want in a founder.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, just curious, did you have any hesitations, or like, did it scare you at all? Were you intimidated? It doesn't seem that way, but what was your kind of like, how did you internalize being a founder for the first time?
I've always liked risk, and I've always thought, like, early on in your career, you need to be as risk on as possible, right? And I've always really wanted to have my work be like an adventure. And I feel like I had accomplished a lot of what I could have done at ZK, at Matter Labs, at ZK Sync. And there was this moment, some people want to become founders just for the sake of being a founder. They're like, I want to be a founder. I want to build something. I don't really know what, but like, I'll find an idea and I'll do it. And for me, it was the opposite. It's just the conditions kind of lined up where, okay, I think this is a really good time to build something that's oriented specifically towards consumers, do things differently. I have the right connections to do it. I have the tech stack to do it. I can raise money to do it. I have a partner, which was Merit Circle, now known as Beam.
Nice.
We do it. So this is the moment, right? Like all the ingredients are kind of in place. Like, let's fucking go. Like, let's shift gears and do this. And that was the moment, and it went pretty fast.
I remember, being introduced to Sophon from the paper guys pretty early, and it was like a couple weeks later, like very quickly, you guys had this really, really successful node sale. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what are some takeaways? It seems like you did a lot right there. What are some lessons that you could share with the listeners about that?
So before the node sale, we did a seed round where we raised 10 mil, which paper led. Maven 11 as well, Spartan, 7X, Caratage, Hypersphere, Binance Labs. So, like a lot of like nice names, which I think brought a lot of legitimacy to the project.
Totally.
Because back then it's basically like just a deck, right?
Yeah.
So, you need to, like, you get some legitimacy from...
You need that stamp on it,
Oh yeah, from very high quality investors, co-signing on it. And then we realized that a node sale was a great way to do a lot of things. It was a great way to raise capital. It was a great way to build community before launching the actual project. Because obviously people, they might say that they care about your project or something, but when they have to put their hand in their pocket, it's different, right? So when people bet or like vote with their money, it's that they really care.
Nice.
Or they're really like going to be evangelists for what you're building.
Yeah. And they have skin in the game.
They've got skin in the game. So we thought if we do this node sale and we get a lot of retail users interested in being long Sophon before it launches, this is a fantastic community building exercise, right? And that's exactly what we did. We raised 21,000 ETH, which at the time was like 65 mil across, I think it was like 5,500 or 6,000 individual people who did it. And yeah, so we've had this core community ever since backing us, which has been fantastic.
Let's get into the fun stuff, man. I'm very interested to hear about the brand and the marketing of Sophon. And also, I think in a reverse order, a little bit from how I usually do it, I'm going to talk to you after that about kind of like founder characteristics and operating principles that you have. lessons you learned along the way, that kind of thing. But I guess to start at the beginning, what the hell is a Sophon? Like, what the fuck is what is Sophon?
Like our Sophon?
Yeah, like what does that mean? I have no idea what the word means. Like, where did you get the brand?
Comes from the Three Body Problem. So this book called The Three Body Problem that coincidentally Netflix did a series on last year. And in the book, you have these characters, they're antagonists, they're called Sophons. They're these little sort of like particles that can read or like consume information, but they can't like speak about it. And the person who helped us or who came up with the design behind Sophon really liked that concept, you know, because he linked it to the ZK concept where...
Very Swiss of you, I feel like.
Huh? Yeah, actually the designer's British. But yeah, you could say Swiss as well. Yeah. We look in the bank account. We don't say what's in
Exactly, yeah.
And he just came up with, so he liked that parallel with ZK. And then we thought the name was cool. I mean, it's just a cool ass name.
I like it.
And this designer, he's an incredibly creative person. And he just came up with the design behind Sophon.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I've noticed like on the visual side of the branding, like there's a lot of like elements of like, it seems kind of like what's behind this door.
Yeah.
Like it seems like a little bit of mystery, but like you can tell that there's, I don't know. I guess how have you kind of guided the design, and what do you want to make people feel when they resonate with the brands of Sophon?
I wanted to be the design principles we had at the start, and especially what this designer was focused on, is doing something that was beautiful, that felt very light, that felt very neutral, where. And if you're really getting into like design specifics, where the brand would be very strong at the beginning, right? Because when Sophon came out, people didn't really know what it was. It was very secretive, but kind of invited some curiosity from folks. But over time, we wanted the brand to become a little bit more faded into the overall experience so that we can push forward our partners, right? If your brand is like much too strong, you're going to overshadow the folks working with you, and that's not really the objective. And he designed that to the T.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
Like Sophon it's neither here nor there. Like you can think about Apple in a way, right? Like Apple has very strong design principles, but they don't dictate how an Apple device functions, or it's like very strong, but also very neutral at the same time. And from a design perspective, it's a very difficult thing to achieve, but I think it's a very high quality product that you can achieve.
I think one thing that really resonates with me about you as a founder and how you think and how you operate, and you're not the only one who's like this, but I wish more people were both crypto native, but also took lessons from Web 2. And I feel like you have a very good balance of that. Yeah, give me your take on that. Give me your thoughts around that.
Yeah, I think it's important to be retardio, but not retarded.
Yeah, nice. I like that. A lot of these crypto kids get caught in the echo chamber a little bit too much,
Yeah, exactly. We have the ambition to contribute and be one of the projects that's going to pioneer this next wave of folks coming on chain. And in order to do that successfully, you need to be very empathetic in the manner in which Web2 users interact with technology on a day-to-day basis. Right? How do they consume this tech? How are their habits created? And how can we take those things and just slowly fork them into a Web3 setting? So I think you need to pay a lot of attention. I think empathy is the right word here to figure this out. But then you also really need to understand, okay, how does crypto work? How does crypto function in these things? And how can I also make this appealing to the CT crowd? Because you can't fade the liquidity, right? You need to do both. You need to be able to bring those new folks in and make something that's beautiful and that's actually PvE instead of PvP for them. But at the same time, you want CT to be involved in this, right? Like, you should never fade CT.
Facts. No, that's a tough balance to achieve. And I've never really thought about the word empathy as a part of this process, but it makes all the sense in the world. I think there's a lot of people who come from Web 2 and understand these fundamentals and principles, but maybe get lost in the CT, just lost in the sauce a little bit, and forget to address that audience, or forget to have empathy for those people because they're too deep in crypto Twitter. Twitter is the place where you can get really lost in the crypto native sauce. I really I'm curious to hear how you approach Twitter marketing, because like you said, you can't fade Twitter, you can't fade the liquidity and the retardio and all that. How do you maintain like strong Web 2 principles while still participating and addressing that CT crowd?
Yeah. I guess there's certain rules or like things that work on CT. And then there's a lot of things that work in the Web2 space, right? So we know that producing content and storytelling is the way that most brands interact with their end consumer, right? People love to consume, short brain rot content or mini series of, like a mini doc or something, 30 seconds or a minute. And, that's how most fashion brands interact with their customers today, right? It's through influencers producing content on their behalf rather than putting up a billboard or something, right? So we know that this works. We know that this is how Web2 people or like mass retail consume marketing. So you need to do the same thing in crypto, right? At the same time, you have to strike a balance with the very crypto native culture that's on CT, which only like a crypto native person can truly understand, right?
Of course.
And I think you just need to strike the balance between both and, to increase your mind share. You can't be, if you're way too left curve, you're going to alienate those new folks who you're trying to attract. But at the same time, if you're way too normie or Web2 friendly, you're going to alienate the CT crowd because they're going to think like this is bullshit or whatever. So it's important to strike a balance in the middle.
I agree with you on that. It's hard to find, when you're looking for someone to help your marketing efforts on Twitter.
I call Dan, man.
Yeah, I try to.
Actually, it's true though. I do call you.
Thank you, man. And I have some good people to present to you. And it's really, I guess from my perspective too, it's really hard to filter. It's hard to hire Twitter marketing people because you have to really be careful about certain filters. And, we all know that there's plenty of grifters out there and people that are value extractive and looking to build their own brands rather than brand for the company. And they're not really focused on the user's best interests at heart. Yeah. They just want to get attention and get hype. And it's, as a founder, I imagine that like it's tempting to hire that person because you know that they can bang the gong and people will pay attention, but at what cost? You know what I mean? So walk me through your thought process of filtering out Twitter marketing candidates.
Yeah. When you're hiring a designer, like when I hire designers for Sophon, it's both easy and hard, but it's easy in the sense that a designer will send me their portfolio, right? So I can just look at, okay, this is everything you've done in the past. I can clearly see how you think and how you work. If I like your designs, you're not going to hire a designer and then she produces stuff and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't what we said. Like, hey, there's all this history. Right. Just look at it.
The way his creative brain works, this is the direction that it's good. This is what's going to come out.
For the social stuff, it's a lot harder because I can kind of look how you've worked in the past, but it doesn't really, it's much more malleable, right? So we had actually come up with sort of a framework that we had shared with you guys, and which I'm actually happy to share on this podcast, where there's a few questions that we look at, which give me as a founder, like a really good overview of what the person's going to be like at the end. So for instance, we would ask people to write like a very long form tweet or like a blog post aimed at positioning Sophon as the go-to consumer crypto platform. I try to get them to understand like my language, like the way that I express myself online.
Like the tone of the brand and things like that.
Tone of the brand, but also like my tone, because like I would like the marketer to understand how I communicate.
Sure.
People, right. I have my own voice. And then I also asked them like to list like topics or ideas for further leadership pieces. So because this forces the person that I'm interviewing to like they have to research Sophon. They have to really understand what we're doing rather than just reading like a landing page. And I want them to think, okay, what could you write else?
Nice.
And then I can tell, okay, can this person like internalize the Sophon values and what we're building?
Yep.
Then I would ask them, how are you going to grow our mindshare score, for instance, and just take Kaito as an example, right? But you can't use the Sophon X account for anything other than articles and partner marketing. So like, show me that you're creative. Show me that you can come up with, different ways to market to people. Let's look at like, why did you make those decisions? Or like, why is this your proposal? More on the social side, we're like, okay, well, Discord and Telegram, if we want to have like an ambassador program or strengthen community participation, like tell me, how would you do this in the next 30 days, for instance, both for Discord, both for Telegram, and then also what's a structure for ambassador programs? How would you drive incentives to those folks? Those types of things. This is kind of an exercise that will take, it could take 6 hours, it could take a day to do. But if a person sends me back replies to all of this, I know how they think about community. I know how they would execute around it. I know how they would do it on socials. I know how they think of Sophon, the brand, and how they would articulate that to an end audience. So it makes it much easier for me to just go through this and understand how the person thinks, right?
So there's a lot to unpack there. I want to ask you about the results that you like. What were people's submissions like, and what did you learn from more broadly about the people that took on that exercise? But what strikes me as really interesting is like throughout this whole conversation, you haven't once mentioned number of followers. That strikes me because so many founders, when they're looking for Twitter people, like the first filter is how many followers do they have? And like me as a recruiter trying to help them make the best hire, I know that that's not the right metric to look at, but it's really hard to convince them out of that mindset.
I mean, it's really on a case-by-case basis.
Like, does it make you concerned? Like, let's say the person does that exercise, they nail it. Like like their thought process is on point. They understand Sophon, they understand how to position it, but like this person only has 4,000 followers on Twitter. Like, are you concerned that they might do great work, but the reach might not have the impact that you needed to have for the brand?
No, I would hire that person.
I
would
Why?
give that person a try because it means that they're thinking, it means that they're smart. Like if they've answered in a way that really resonates with me, then it means that this person through my lens is at least like a smart person or can understand these things, right? And so I might as well give that person a chance. Someone on the flip side who comes with a very high following, I mean, they could be great, but they could also be maybe focused on other things. They could be distracted, or they just might not really resonate or have taken the time to really internalize what Sophon's trying to do. I'm trying to, as a founder, especially when you're growing a small company, I'm hiring attitudes. There can be folks that come work for Sophon who are still a bit junior sometimes, but they work their ass off. And that's the fantastic attitude to have. On the flip side, you can have some guys who come in who might have a great pedigree, be highly recommended or whatever. But
also great ego.
Or an ego, yeah, exactly. The attitude isn't there, the ego gets in the way, or ego is generally in the way of feedback, right? I give very straight feedback to people that I work with. I'm never rude. I'm always very conscientious of people's feelings or whatever, but I give feedback, right? And if you can't take feedback, that's a problem. I get feedback from my team, right? I ask my team regularly, give me feedback on me. What am I doing that you like, that you don't like? And sometimes, yeah, they tell me, Seb, like you've been too slow to make a decision here for something. And I thank them for telling me, like it keeps you in check. So you're hiring attitudes. And by doing these sorts of exercises, I can see the attitude that a person has. And then I validate it when I do the interviews. And by the time that I hire them, I have a pretty good, usually it's a pretty good feeling, right? Like you're
love that
about having this person.
I guess my next question would be, so like, okay, so you identify someone who has the right attitude, the right strategy and knowledge or whatever. How are you going to help them amplify the message then? So you're a Twitter person, you have the right attitude, but you don't have a big audience.
Right.
And you're creating great content, you're pumping the brand and the message in the exact right way, but it's not reaching enough people because you don't have that big of a following. How is that not a concern for you?
Because I think it can compound over time. Typically, it's maybe folks who've been in the space like maybe not as long, but they've tried very hard or they put a lot of time into onboarding. I mean, it's going to sound silly, but I have a really good gut feeling about stuff in general.
Yeah.
When I have a good gut feeling about someone, I'm like almost always right. Same as when I have a bad gut feeling. It kind of comes down to that.
Yeah.
Giving the guys a platform, maybe plugging them with my network, me trying to help a bit, but typically someone that we're hiring soon to help with this as well, just have a good feeling about it and let them run. Let them be creative. I don't want people to be just trying to like copy whatever some other project is doing, right? Like it's just so boring. So I always tell them, be creative, like show some balls, do something different. I have, what is it that you get from me? I have a fuckload of money from my treasury, and I'm a very easygoing person. Like I will always tell my team yes if there's a reason for doing something. And I never get pissed if something doesn't work out. Like if you tried something on CT or whatever and like it didn't work, fuck it, do something else. Unless it backfires, right? Like I don't want you doing
right. Don't show up
like don't be Kanye with a swastika t-shirt and be like, oh, Seb, it didn't work.
Shout out to the Block Mitzvah boys. That was a good time last night. Nah, yes.
That's not going to happen.
I totally agree.
But you want to try some shit out, just fucking go for it.
Yeah.
And if it works, great. Like double down on it. And if it doesn't, then pivot. But
what I love about that
ego, right?
Yeah. What I love about that is like, I love that you're willing to like, because also like the superpower there is like, what you know this as a founder, like when you have a creative idea and you try something and you execute and it works, like you're turning up the volume 100x, then you're so motivated to keep going. Yeah. And it's so great to have someone backing you that supports trying new things. And it might not be the first, second, third idea that pops, but when that fourth, fifth one hits and it makes the impact, you're going to like triple, quadruple down on it and go crazy, you know?
I think it's also what makes it fun for people to work. And when you're running a company remotely, like most of these crypto companies are, you need folks to just have a good time at work, right?
Yeah.
You need vibes to be good, keep on being curious. Like the worst thing that could happen is complacency sets in. If you're kind of like cracking the whip and getting people to work hard, but at the same time, they can work like they're accountable to themselves on coming up with cool things, and you're giving them the freedom, the liberty, and the resources to execute. I think that creates sort of a work environment that's exciting to work in.
Mm-hmm. Last question on the marketing thing. Just curious, like I mentioned before, like from the responses to your questions that you put out there, did you see any trends overall, or like common mistakes that people, or not mistakes, but common trends that you didn't agree with in the responses to that exercise?
In some cases, the answers came back. It's not that someone put it through ChatGPT, but it was just very vanilla. And they don't have to necessarily come back in writing. Like they can study it, and we can hop on a call,
talk about the principles
about it. Once you've kind of like broken down what it is that you want from this role and what are the expectations, and show me how you think about these things, and you talk to the person about it, you can kind of tell, like, does this guy get it or not?
Yeah. I don't know why, just a random question that popped into my mind as you're talking. Like, how do you feel about the cult leader founder thing? Like, I see you as kind of like that, but in a pretty balanced, like low key way. Like you are front lines. I see you more as like a wartime general, like on the front lines, rather than like, and I'm not disrespecting the cult leader thing. I think it definitely works in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But sometimes the cult leader is like here and the team is here. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah. I think cult leaders are really important for building community in crypto. They're sort of evangelizing their product, especially cult leaders with like a very strong personality. It gives folks someone to kind of rally around, right? Like if a token is the church and the cult leader is kind of the priest, and your community members or token holders are folks going there, then yeah, I think it's very good.
So are you conscious about how you want to play that role, or just kind of like letting it happen?
Yeah, but I can't force it because it's just not. I have my own opinions, and I like to shitpost a bit on CT. It's like a balance between shitposting and like saying what I think is like maybe probably mid-curve stuff, but it sounds smart to me.
Yeah.
But I play that game a bit, but I don't. My personality, I like to be quite discreet. Like
yeah,
I was online anon before. Then obviously now, like I dox myself because I think it's a bit better. But I'm just myself, and then people like me. If people like me for being myself, then it's good. But I'm not going to pretend. What I can't do is like, I can't pretend to be someone that I'm not. Right?
Yeah.
I can show more of myself, and if people like me because they, they like my attitude or whatever, then I become a cult leader, but just by
organic
being who I am. But what I can't do, because I'm really like not a bullshit person.
Yeah.
I can't shift my personality to being somebody else and try and milk this cult leader agenda by being someone that I'm not.
Agreed.
And that's for everything in life,
that definitely resonates. And yeah, it's quite obvious, I would say.
I learned this from women, actually. Like when I was younger and I was like, before I met my wife, like I was dating and stuff. And, some guys, sometimes you're trying to, especially when you're a teenager, like at university, you're trying to like change your attitude for like whatever's going to get you in.
It never works.
And in the end, I was like, dude, fuck that. I'm just going to be the way I am. And if a chick digs me for the way I am, then it's organic, right? It's grassroots and you have a great time. But I feel bad for people who pretend to be something else, because like the stress that you feel and like the lack of satisfaction that you have with yourself internally over time, it's just not
good. Cool. Well, I guess like jumping off that, curious about the Sophon community. Like as the community grows, How are you trying to make them feel? What experiences are you trying to curate? How do you just more broadly think about the community that you're building?
Yeah. So the OG community for Sophon are the folks who participated in the note sale, right? Why? Because they put their hand in their pocket. They spent money to be long Sophon before the token had launched, before the chain had launched, right? So those people are the most important guys for me at the beginning. I kind of work off of the Bored Ape Yacht Club model from last cycle, where if you had bought a Bored Ape, if you had minted a Bored Ape, you were constantly getting value, right? You were getting value through, we were going to mint a mutant, like the Kennel Club, the Ape Coin. And because they kept on getting value driven to them, they became the biggest marketing tool, the biggest evangelists for the project. So for me, not only is the node holders, not only are they getting a lot of tokens, but every project that works with Sophon, for instance, we're always negotiating like an airdrop. And instead of that going to the foundation, we have a lot of money, we don't really need this. It's always redirected to the node holders, So in a way, I'm a bit like a mayor or a politician telling a business, you're Starbucks, or you want to come be in my city? Okay, but it's free coffee for my guys for the next couple months. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
And you got to keep, and I think if, you keep driving value to those folks.
That's awesome.
Making them happy, when they're happy, then it's all good. And like, it just attracts more people to come. I want to have a happy organic community, right? Because you need to be able to weather storms, ups and downs. Sometimes we'll make mistakes, maybe like it'll eventually happen, right? Like,
dude, that's really interesting. This is like my 60th. I think this is episode 60, something like that. And like, I've asked this question to every person that's been on this pod, on this couch. I've never heard anyone say like, I just want to constantly provide value to them. And I love that. And I love the analogy you used about the Starbucks giving free coffee. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. How's that process going, the community building? Like,
it's going well. I mean, we have, it's maybe a bit of a smaller community than some other of these like large projects like Monad or Mega ETH have, but it's very organic.
And that's a operating principle that you have across the board, is just slow organic growth in all aspects, rather than like pushing it to get the most attention, most eyes.
It could happen fast and organic, and I'd be happy as well, right?
Nice.
But as long as it's organic, and like I have 30,000 followers or something on Twitter. I've never bought, or because I know some people buy, they just want to boost their numbers a bit. They're juicing. But I've never done it. Just it's slow and steady.
Yeah.
And then you've just got you can lean on it much more. And just that's the way that I've always tried to live life.
Yeah. Any other like strong operating principles that you have? Maybe is there anything unique that you do internally in how you run the business, in how you treat the team, how you manage people? What are some operating principles outside of just being organic and authentic, which is really important to me?
Really good attitude. I think I want to have all of my team members really have a good work ethic, good work attitude. I'm trying to keep Sophon small as a company. Just try and be a good boss, right? Be a boss that I think would be a good boss. I take a lot of like lessons from my dad and how he ran his business and how he treated his employees. So, compensate people well, expect a lot from folks in terms of the work that they're providing, but also if people need to take some time off. Some folks in our team had kids this year. I told them, you want to take a week off or you want to take a month off? I don't care. Do whatever you want. Leave. Make sure that someone's covering for you. You want to take 2 months off, you're paid. Enjoy the time with your wife, with your baby. But when you come back, right? You don't come back like, I'm here for a bit and I leave and I come back and I just take your time, do it, and like it's our gift, it's Sophon's gift to you to be able to have this flexibility.
Awesome.
Enjoy and then come back. And I think people really resonate with this. I think it's really good to be able to treat your employees in a very nice way. Also being very open with people internally. Like when we have our all hands every week, I really tell people like, this is what I did last week. This is the problems we have right now, or this is what I'm trying to solve. This is how I think. And then lastly, every 6 months, I do a one-on-one with everyone in the company. And I just ask them like, how's it going? What have you been working on? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you like about your manager? What don't you like? What about me do you like? Do you not like? What can we change? And actually last time I did this in December, there were a couple trends where I realized like, okay, there's something I need to fix here, and we fixed it. I think people appreciate that as well.
Hell yeah. When you thought about building the team, like, did you ever have an idea to have like an in-person culture or remote? Like, I don't know, some people have polarizing ideas about it. You seem to be kind of flexible or whatever, but
I mean, it's crypto, right? So I knew that everybody was going to be remote. I personally live like a pretty remote lifestyle because I like to move around, and I'm not always in the same place. So I couldn't expect others to.
Yeah.
We do spend time in person when we can. And, any founder will tell you, when you're with your team together, you achieve a lot more, right? Because you're able to, even if you want to iterate on a certain process or brainstorm, it's just far easier to do it together over the course of 1 or 2 days, back and forth, than online. So of course, we try to be in person as much as possible, but folks are free to live where they want to live.
It is what it is. Let's talk about Paper for a quick second. Is there anything through your work as a venture partner at Paper, meeting all these projects that are pitching, seeing what people are, cooking up in the background, any information that you get through that you apply into Sophon that's helpful in building the project?
Working from the start with Paper and with the GPs, they run Paper more like they're more like the Carlo Ancelotti or the Zidane style, right? They're judging a lot of stuff based on how the founder is behaving, how kind of like the attitude, like where they think the project could go, and like Oliver has an insane bullshit meter, right? Which can be take people off guard at the beginning because he's very direct with his bullshit meter, but I can tell you that we were chatting about a couple of things the last couple of weeks with regards to stuff we looked at last year. And he's always right. As a founder, and obviously looking at all of this deal flow with them and seeing how they approach deals, because obviously they've been in this space for a long time from the venture perspective. I just learned a lot how to judge people, how to judge projects, more on just what the deck is, or because a lot of the times the ideas might sound great, or some of the tech might look good, but there's so many other pieces to that puzzle that make a project successful, which are much more nuanced, much more intangible. And the only way that you really get to understanding them is through experience. And obviously the three of them, Danish, Vilo, and Oliver, have a lot of experience there. And so that's just what I studied the most.
I did a pod with Danish and Oliver. We talked about like how they add value to their portfolio companies. And I don't know, I just hear great feedback about them in the market.
Yeah.
And you've been around the space for a while. So many of the funds, and obviously through your work at Paper, you collaborate with some, pretty closely. What do you think is their edge?
First of all, it's the experience, because they've done this so many times. Sometimes they're warning founders like not to do something or not to behave in a certain way, or because they know it's not gonna work. And the founder could be like, yeah, but these guys are wrong, or this time I know what I'm doing. And I can really tell you, like, most of the time they're right. They're a bit like dads. You know how your dad is like, dude, don't do this.
Yeah.
Like, he's always fucking right at the end of the day.
Danish has dad vibes.
And they're good dads. They're cool to hang out with. I think a lot of it matters, right? From a network perspective, they have an insane network. I mean, they know everyone.
True.
There's nobody that you cannot get in touch with when you know those guys. And then they're pretty hands-off until you need them to be hands-on. But if you need them to be hands-on, like, they're there. I think a lot of founders can't say that of all of the investors that they have.
Agreed.
But with them, there's been, whenever I need them, there was an example, for instance, where a portfolio company that was just related to us, but like not direct, was having a security issue. And they immediately went out, in crisis mode. Okay, how can we help these guys?
Nice.
Let's wake up our security guy. Let's wake up someone who's going to kind of like draft a statement. They're just like, they're on top of their shit.
Yeah.
But when they need to be.
They generally have good intentions for the space overall, and they're not always so value extractive or transactional about every decision they make, Yeah. Which
they're just good people.
Easy. For me as a founder, right? Like, one of the more interesting parts of the journey, which I didn't expect or understand in the beginning, is like, when you have the responsibility of, a 10-person team, like, under you, like, it forced me to like level up in my personal life to be a better person, to like, sometimes we let our emotion, like me personally, I can be emotional and like, I get pissed and say shit that I don't mean or whatever, like just make bad decisions based on emotions. And when you realize that it impacts so many people, in such a big way, it makes you it forces you to like change certain things about yourself. I guess, is there anything like that you've experienced so far that you've like, is there any lessons that you've learned from being a founder personally?
I don't take myself very seriously. So like, I think I'm a pretty down to earth person, but sometimes all of a sudden you realize like, yeah, you've got 20 people working for you, and maybe some of the more junior people, they're going to look up to you, right? Like they're going to see you as not like a chill or like low key person, but they're going to see you as, oh, this is my boss. And it took a little bit of time for me to adapt to understand that people have this expectation of me. And so I need to mirror that expectation for them. Like I need to behave in a way that in the way that they expect me to, right? So maybe that was a bit of a change that I had to make, because sometimes you can be too chill, but then like if someone's a bit junior and they have these expectations of you, they might think like, oh, the boss doesn't like me or something, which is not the case at all, right? So being conscious of this, for me, it's just really about curating good vibes in the team. Like it's in all the other businesses that I've been involved in, if you create good vibes and good intentions in your team, people are just happy to work. They work well. This is so much more benefit to everybody than creating a hostile environment.
When I do these podcasts, my goal here is to have all the listeners understand, like, what does it feel like to work for Sophon? Like, that's really my goal, what I'm trying to get at here. When you work at Sophon, you walk into an environment of trust.
It's a lot of trust. You know, you've been selected to work here because we see a lot of potential in you as a person. This is a project that has, you know, an incredible cap table, an incredible treasury, and a very ambitious roadmap and North Star. And you're hired as a person to work in a particular vertical, product or marketing or engineering. So there are things that we need to achieve. I and my leadership team dictate what we're trying to do, but then just be the best version of yourself, right? And you can have anything you want, like any resources you need. Everything is there. This is maybe a good example. Sometimes I'm interviewing someone and they're like talking about the role and how they're going to fit in and stuff. And then they told me, yeah, then I want to hire another person to said, hey, wait a minute. I'm not hiring people who want to hire other people. Like everybody who I hire, it's you're a worker, right? You're in the trenches with the rest of the team doing stuff. I don't want this kind of like corporate managerial thing where then you're just going to sit there and tell like X, Y, Z. No, you got to get your hands dirty as well. And everybody in the team is like that. Everybody in the team can get their hands dirty. It's a completely flat structure. And I think it's a much better work environment, because the worst thing you can have in team is people are working their ass off on one side and then some dude's chilling on the other. And as if the hard workers are looking at this guy where they're like hanging out, they're like, what are you doing?
I agree. That's not good for it's not good energy to spread around the org. Random question for you. I don't know what the answer is because no one would come to me with this type of bullshit, but what's the biggest FUD out there on Sophon? What do you think, like haters, what do the haters have to say about Sophon, and what do you think maybe people are misunderstood about? What's the biggest misconception?
We had some FUD when we did the note sale because, but this was from kind of like very technical maxi people. They're like, oh, but you're selling like 120,000 nodes, but there's only one sequencer. You know, this is all bullshit. It's all fake. And obviously, like, you know, there's like 500,000 nodes running Ethereum, right? So it's not like we're having a third of that running Sophon, right? And anyways, all of these L2s and L2 stacks, they're running off of one sequencer. So that's not what the nodes were for. It was a miscommunication or like a misinterpretation from the market. So we did a lot of content, a lot of writing to explain what it was that they're performing data sampling light clients for the Avail network that we use for DA. That was maybe like one.
Shout out my boy Naruto from Avail. I'm so sorry about the event. Guy. I love him, and I fucked up. I fucked up at the event. We were packed out. I ain't gonna lie. I love Naruto.
Me too. One of the things we had to deal with. But you know, we've been slow and steady. I don't really see that much FUD.
I haven't really seen anything either. No, but just curious. And I guess maybe that's a function of not like being the guys that are out there just popping shit too much about how great you are. Like I guess if you just do the natural, organic, slow build, like it doesn't invite hate. You know what I mean? You know,
some projects have this big go-to-market push and everybody's speaking about them on Twitter, and then they launch too soon, or, you know, things don't work. And then you've kind of like created a situation where people are going to complain, right? And
that you've given them a reason.
Yeah. And negative news always goes more viral than good news, right?
Facts. I can't remember what the situation was, but we were talking about something at some point, and you were just like, I don't spread negativity about anyone, even if I feel it. Like, and I'll say it privately, but I'm not that guy.
There was a project. They made a couple posts they were not saying Sophon, but they were saying that they were doing things differently and not using the techniques that we were. It was very clearly directed at us. Whatever. Suck my dick. I really don't give a shit.
Love it, man. To wrap us up here, like, what is the most exciting thing for you on the roadmap this year? Like, what kind of goals do you have? What should people be looking out for?
There's a few things. We're rolling out a lot of the things that we've built internally. So these internal products like the Sophon account, the Sophon home, the Sophon OS, the Sophon loyalty program, the Sophon data hub. So all of these kind of like homemade one experience things I think look super cool. We announced the SIA, the Sophon Intelligence Agency, which is our program.
It's so good.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it's great.
It's our program to sponsor AI agent projects. So we took 5 mil from our treasury to help build these things out on Sophon. So I'm super excited about this. Our token is going to come out relatively soon, probably sometime in the next quarter. So that's obviously exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's it. And keep doing good work with you guys.
I want Sophon to win. I want you guys to win genuinely. And you're one of my, I'm on the front lines with you, bro, pushing Sophon, and I'm proud to do it. Dude, I believe in you as a leader. I believe in you as a founder. And it's a project that I enjoy selling. All right, man. Well, dude, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to work together. I'm going to keep pushing people your way. I'm going to keep waving that flag. And for y'all that don't know about Sophon, please go check it out. Appreciate you listening. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.